Hi, this is Mike Anderson of Cleland of Static. Today I have the awesome opportunity to get the chance to spend some time with Claire from ProStat. Claire, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Mike.
You know, Claire, one of the things everybody's asking about is, who is this company ProStat? Now, we obviously know that you're from England or the UK, but everybody's wanting to know, who is this company ProStat and what do they do? Can you give us a little bit about the history of ProStat?
Absolutely. We originated in the UK, as you said. We're based in England, in the north of England. And we've been around 13 years now in the UK under the name Static Solutions. And we have sold anti-static equipment to the UK automotive industry for that 13 years, primarily the product being StatGun. We've now rebranded for the US market and we're now here under the name ProStat, and we have offices now in Florida, so we are a US company now based in Florida, and we will be trading from those Florida offices.
Okay, well, welcome to the United States, right?
Thank you.
So the next question I have for you, Claire, is what is the ProStat gun?
Okay, the StatGun, or the ProStat as we've rebranded, is an ionizing gun, basically, that clips onto the airline just like a blowgun would. But what it does is produces positive and negative ionization. And we blow that positive and negative ionization onto the panels, whether that panel be plastic or metal. And what that does is neutralizes any static charge that's been built up during the preparation of that panel. And it's massively important that we start painting from a neutral surface, because static will cause lots and lots of different problems in the finish.
Sure. So when you say that it removes the static electricity,
yes.
So it actually removes it. So it's like minimizing it. It's not just kind of making it a little less. It's actually removing the static.
It will remove it, but the important thing to note is static isn't removed permanently. It will be regenerated. Okay. So it's very important to keep using it throughout the painting process. Wherever there's an application of material, that's when to use the ProStat.
Okay, so, you know, obviously I've had the opportunity to firsthand use the ProStat, and I've seen amazing results, just so everybody knows that. And I've got, literally, I have over 200 clients actually using this product. So I've heard amazing results, but, you know, obviously people know me and they don't know you, and plus your accent sounds a lot better than mine does. So what are some things maybe you could tell them, some of the benefits that people have seen that utilize the ProStat?
Okay, first of all, what people generally notice first is the reduction in dirt and contamination in the finish, which cuts down on the cutting and buffing and polishing time. That tends to be a huge difference instantly. But what people are shocked about is the difference in the way that metallic laydown is affected, the way that you get better flow of material into corners, into edges, you get just less problems in general.
Okay, so let's just stop you there for a minute. Okay. So how does ProStat remove static electricity help me to get my metallic to lay down better?
Okay, well, static electricity is an electromagnetic charge, and if you think about the way that a magnet would affect iron filings, for example. If you put iron filings on a piece of paper, we've all done that at school, I'm sure. Yeah. You put the magnet underneath, it makes the metallic stand up. Static is an electromagnetic charge, and most of the time you're going to put metallic flake on top of that. It will have the same effect. So the higher the charge, the more upright that metallic is forced, and it loses its random orientation that it should have. And also it doesn't distribute evenly within the paint film, it wants it to clump together. So when you have that effect, this reflects less light than this, so you end up with a darker appearance wherever there's a higher charge.
So Claire, we've talked a little bit about the benefits of using the ProStat on plastic. So a lot of times people are going to ask me, well, do I need to use that on aluminum and steel? Because, you know, I don't have as much static electricity. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, it is a common question. People generally have always thought that static is just an issue on plastic.
Right, because I always did, I'll be honest with you.
It isn't.
Although I will say, Ben, many of you that are as old as I am might remember the days when we used to paint cars. We'd actually take and wrap a chain around the axle, and we would actually have the chain touch the grate in the spray booth, because we felt that it helped us to control static. So, you know, as I think back to some of the things my dad did in his older days, that makes sense to me. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, people have always tried to use methods to control static. We're going back to the earthing. The problem with trying to earth things with a chain is that you actually can't earth anything that's not a metal. And when you do, even when you earth a metal, it's not an instant earth. It does take time to dissipate. What the ionizing guns that we produce give you is instant earth. It gives you instant neutral. You do get static charge on other materials other than plastics, and fiberglass as well is quite a highly charged surface. Metals will charge. We've known instances of people getting a shock from a metal surface when they've been using an alcohol wipe over the surface. So what we're aiming to do here is create uniformity, so that one surface behaves exactly the same as any other surface.
Okay, great. So we absolutely, so let's just clarify this. The ProStat would be used not just on plastic, but the stat gun would also be used on aluminum and steel as well.
Absolutely.
And it actually makes a benefit. So let's talk a little bit about heavy-duty truck shops. You know, I have a lot of clients, people may not know this, but Collision Advice, we do a lot of work with heavy-duty truck and RV shops. And I'll tell you, this is a game changer for those guys because, man, if you've ever worked on SMC or fiberglass, anything that a lot of these heavy-duty trucks and RV shops products are made out of, you'll see there's tons of static electricity. So, man, for those, the ProStat works really well. So let's talk a little bit about this because some people may say, okay, if I use this ProStat, right, it's going to take me a lot of time. So how much time does it take? Let's say that I'm going to paint a bumper cover and a fender and a hood and a door, right? How much time would you think it's going to take a painter to actually use this ProStat to actually remove the static?
It's only a very, very quick process. It's no different to using just a regular blowgun. You just go over the surface with it. There's quite large coverage on it. As long as you have a decent amount of air pressure, it's going to cover a large area. So say, for example, a bumper cover, you could probably do that in 10 seconds.
Okay.
Obviously, larger areas will take longer. But it should be seconds worth of time or even a couple of minutes if you even did a whole job. The amount of time that will save you further down the process, it's 2 minutes well spent.
Yeah, so what you need to understand is this is the last thing you will do before you apply any color or any clear. So what's going to happen is you're going to tack it, you're going to wipe it off, all the normal things that you actually do. And this is the last thing you're going to do. Because what happens if a painter takes and reuses this ProStat and reuses static electricity and then they wipe it back over with a tack rag or pre-cleaner again, that's going to put static back on there,
correct? It will instantly create static.
Okay,
any form of contact or movement or friction or even heat on a surface can cause static, which is why we advise to use it before each application of material. Even if there's been no contact with a cloth or a tack cloth, it's still worth going over it again because the issue with static is that you can't see it. You don't know it's there. If you ionize a surface, you know it isn't there. You've put a control in place, and that's what we're trying to aim for here, is a control in place at every single stage.
I know recently I was with you with a group of shop owners, and we were in Miami, Florida, and I heard one of the shop owners ask you, how much time do I have on this? Because see, we're so used to time, right? Like, like after I apply my body filler, how long do I have to wait before I can sand it? Or, if I apply base, how long do I have to wait till I apply clear? And if I wait too long, then it may not stick. So a lot of times people might say, well, what's the longest after I do this before I have to do it again? So I know a lot of times painters that are really good, they'll actually take and put a vehicle in the spray booth at night, get it all staged, so the next morning they come in, they can just start spraying. So if, let's say I took and I used my ProStat, and I went over my vehicle, and now all of a sudden the next morning I come in, I turn my booth on, purge it out a little bit, should I use the ProStat again before I actually paint it, and why?
Absolutely. The reason being, that it's almost an unanswerable question, how long have I got before the static comes back? Because static can't create itself, it has to be created, and some process has to cause that static charge. If you do not touch a surface after it's been ionized with an ionizing gun, the chances are that it will be okay. But we don't want chances are, we know we've ionized that surface, we have a completely neutral surface to start applying material to, now I can start the application.
Because air movement. Yeah, because air movement, I'm sorry to cut you off, but air movement, if I go in and turn my booth on in the morning, now air's moving over this vehicle, that air could actually cause static, correct?
It can do over a period of time. That would take longer than air pressure, than direct pressure from a blowgun, for example, or a spray gun.
Okay.
But it can cause, even changes in temperature can cause a static charge on a material that's quite susceptible to static. So what we always advise is that it's immediately before the application of material. So the painter takes the ionizing gun into the booth with the spray gun.
Okay.
And it's a swift transition from one to the other.
Okay, now when I first saw the ProStat, I was at NACE in Anaheim, California this past year, and that's where I first met you, right? And I saw you come into a hotel room, and you did a demo with the stat gun on a piece of plastic bumper that you carry around, and at the end of the day, you did not have any air hooked up to it. So I saw you do the demonstration. I saw before my very eyes that the ProStat works without air.
Correct.
So why do we have to have it hooked up to an air hose in our spray booth versus why couldn't we use it without air?
Okay, the air is there for two reasons. The air doesn't create the ionization. The gun itself is battery operated and rechargeable, and this is what creates the ionization. And it actually uses air molecules to do so. So there's nothing dangerous in there. It's just ionization, which ions occur in molecules of all substances. What the air does is push that ionization onto the surface and distributes it quickly and evenly. Ionization on its own can't travel very far.
Okay.
Maybe a couple of centimetres or maybe an inch. We do centimetres.
Right.
So it has to have the air assistance to travel, but you also have to have air assistance to scrub the surface clean, just like you would a blowgun. If you just take dirt from a surface with air pressure, it will recirculate and go back to the surface if you have a static charge. So what we do is remove the dirt and remove the attraction for it to stick back.
Okay, one of the great things that I've saw, and I got to be honest with you, while using the ProStat, it actually removes the static electricity, and static electricity is what attracts or draws, denibbing or particles floating around to the panel, which creates dirt, and we have to buff it and sand it, etc. But one of the other value benefits I saw this was the way the color applied. When I had my collision repair centers in Alexandria, Virginia, often we would see like the dry edges of a bumper in a grill area where the paint didn't get good coverage, and then the painter's having to take and go back and sand it and put some color in that area and re-clear the entire panel. And what I found out is that it wasn't because my painter's spray patterns or because they didn't bend down low enough, but I found out what static electricity was causing that metallic or the color, even if it wasn't metallic, was pushing it away, which prohibited good coverage. And one of the things I've seen with a lot of shops that use this ProStat is that it actually allows them to get better coverage of color. So specifically in the back edges of bumpers, in areas where grills are at. Now, I want to talk about something else, Claire. I had somebody reach out to me because I have a lot of people that read my articles in Fender Bender and such, and they reached out to me and they said, Mike, I've heard you mention about this ProStat, and there was this other unit that was much cheaper, literally like a 30-year price, and they were like, can you tell me some of the differences between this? And so I did my research, came to my own conclusions. In no way do I want to disparage any other company out there, but obviously there are cheaper versions out there. Can you talk about some of the benefits of your product versus some of these other versions?
Absolutely. We go to great lengths to make sure that our product is completely safe for use in a spray booth, which is essentially a flammable environment with flammable solvents present. When you create ionization, it creates voltage at the pin in order to create ionization. If that voltage isn't controlled in the way that we control it, it can be dangerous in a spray booth. So when you're looking at anti-static products, you just need to look very carefully and make sure it is suitable for use in a spray booth. But that's the way that we manufacture it, and we would not manufacture it any other way. We could make one very cheaply, but we choose not to. When I speak to shops, I always ask them if there's a competitor down the road that could do their repair cheaper.
Right.
And they can. And there's a reason that it's cheaper.
That's correct.
And it's normally safety.
Yeah, great point. What was really funny is in one of the shops I was in recently, they had one of these cheaper versions of a similar product, right? And I happened to be looking at the box, and when I looked at the box, it had this big disclaimer that said, not for use in a flammable environment, and of course they're using it in a spray booth. So without being disparaging of anybody, I would encourage you, if you see some of those cheaper versions, make sure you check that out, because ProStat does go to great lengths to ensure theirs meets all of the safety and quality products for a spray booth. Speaking of spray booths, it's really important that you take your ProStat out of the spray booth. You don't want to leave it in there especially when you're baking a vehicle at 160 degrees or 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and it bakes the units of the component because there's some computer electronics and stuff in there, and you also don't want to get overspray on it. So it's really important you use the ProStat and you take it back out of the spray booth. Although we did have a shop recently that Claire was telling me about in New Hampshire, and they actually made this enclosed little box in their spray booth with a little door on it. So that guy's like MacGyver, right? But absolutely want to take it out of the spray booth, correct?
You want to take it out of the... It's important to say that it is safe if you do leave it in there accidentally and bake it. It is completely safe to do so, but if it's left in there for a prolonged period of time and it's just baked day after day and also getting excessively oversprayed, it just won't do it any favors.
Correct. Now, what I understand is ProStat, you have two options. One is a purchase to own option. The other is a rental option, right? And we're not sure, which one that you see in the U.S. But on the rental option, when they rent it, they actually get like a lifetime warranty. So if they ever drop it, break it, whatever, it gets exchanged for free. And as well as, I want to make sure I understand this, right? Because I wish iPhone had this option, right? That if you rented it and you come out with a newer version, they automatically get upgraded to that newer version. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And the reason we do the rental, or the reason we offer the rental, it's something that we've always done in the UK, and 99% of our market in the UK do rent the product. The lifetime warranty provides a great service. It's a shop at the end of the day, it's dirty, it's dusty, there's paint everywhere. They do get oversprayed, and over a period of time, if they're allowed to become excessively oversprayed, it will affect the performance. The one thing I say to customers that do purchase outright is that they just need to be careful and look after it and keep it as clean as possible.
Sure. Okay, now let's talk about the life of the equipment itself, right? So from what you told me is that if I was to hold the trigger just nonstop, not ever let it go, it would last for 12 hours of continuous use.
12 hours.
So really, it could probably last me 2 to 3 days in a spray environment
Maybe
easily,
weeks.
right, or weeks. So at the end of the day, make sure I charge it every night.
Yeah.
Some of the other tidbits you gave me was just making sure, again, we keep it clean, not overspray on it, things of that nature. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the financial return on investment. Number one is absolutely cuts down the amount of dirt or nibbing that you're going to have to do on a product. And I've seen that reduced by as much as 50 to 60%, right? Now, obviously, there's some things ProStat cannot solve. if you take the vehicle and they're stone dirty and the painter's dirty, the spray booth is not kept up, those are just kind of common sense things, right? So the ProStat is not going to solve poor housekeeping issues for you. However, shops that have a relatively clean booth and what we consider a clean paint suit and blow off the car well and prep it well, we're seeing shops that are reducing their dirt and denibbing, finish sand and buffing by 50 to 70%, right? And let's just say that I have 3 nibs, right? And I have to go get all my tools and equipment and it takes me 15 to 20 minutes to do that, right? Well, if I can just save the amount of time that I have to sand and buff or denib, we're not even talking about complete sand and buffing, but just denibbing, if I can just reduce that by 30 to 40 minutes a month, I will absolutely pay for my ProStat.
Absolutely.
There's a huge return on investment. I got to tell you, it's an absolutely wonderful return on investment, probably more so than any other product I've ever seen on the market.
And as well as time, there's also the products that aren't being used during that denibbing process as well. One of the other areas...
Materials. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Oh, yeah,
material
great.
Saving.
And
where you will save materials also is when we talk about the way that the paint is distorted, the metallic is distorted, if we completely forget about denibbing and the cleanliness of the jobs, most other issues that have been created by static, so these colour problems or dark edges or just inconsistencies with the material sitting on the surface, the painter will paint over that problem because that's their only option. Their only option to fix that is to keep painting.
Correct.
And that uses quite a lot of extra material that sometimes people aren't even aware of because it's just a complete process where they paint until it looks correct.
Okay, so we have the time savings that we have, right? Because we're not having to sand and buff as much. We have time savings that we may not have to go back because color didn't cover well. We also have the fact that the material costs, that a lot of times painters are using more material to try to hide or cover the dirt, and not being disrespectful, I just seen it happen, but they may also have to use more color because they're trying to get that color to cover an area that just won't cover, right? So there's labor savings, there's time savings, there's material savings, so there's a huge ROI on this tool and equipment. But in one of our conversations, we talked about some of the OEM manufacturers in the UK that are actually using your product. Can you share with us some of the OEMs you're working with and what are some of the benefits the OEMs have saw?
Okay. Lots of the major OEMs in the UK, a lot of prestigious OEMs, so McLaren, Aston Martin, Jaguar Land Rover, Rolls-Royce, Bentley. All these guys are using the product from us, the Stat Gun, the original product. They're massively happy with it. They see huge, even in a place like McLaren, which is exceptionally clean. It's the cleanest spray booth I've ever seen, and they saw a 50% reduction in their dirt count.
Okay, so the thing is that they're not endorsing your product; they're actually using it in their manufacturing plants.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Now, in a manufacturing plant, are they using the same gun that we would use in the real world in the U.S., or they have big robotics that they're using?
No, wherever there's a manual painting operation, there is a manual ionizing operation.
Awesome.
And even though there are areas where there's robots painting the cars, there's always a manual rework or a manual painting area. So wherever there's a painter, there's the ProStat or the Stat Gun.
Okay, great question. Okay, now one or two other questions for you real quick, if I may, and that is, there's a couple different versions of the ProStat out there, right? There's the Stat Gun, there's the ProStat, there's a green version, there's an orange version. Or can you just share what those are?
Absolutely.
I know one of them that you showed me actually has like a red laser beam light, so you can see where you're getting coverage at. Can you share with us a little bit about the difference in those versions?
Okay, the larger version, which is orange, is the original Stat Gun, which is now about 11, 12 years old.
Okay.
And that's the version we've been selling in the UK. We have just now taken the opportunity to do a slight redesign, make some changes to it, and now what we have is the smaller ProStat unit. In terms of performance, they're identical. They're both exceptional ionizing units. They give a perfect result every time. There's just slight differences in the design.
Okay, great. Okay, and the other question I had for you is that obviously there's always going to be cynics, right? I run into my own business that I go in to teach a class and they're like, why do I need to be in Mike Anderson's collision device estimating class? I've been writing estimates for 20 years. And I'm sure you run across the same. So from what I understand is that you guys are very unique in that you offer a free trial that, you will send somebody a gun. They can use it for free. If they don't like it, they ship it back. They're not charged a dime. If they like it, then you have a credit card on file, and then you charge a credit card.
Absolutely.
And so it's actually a free trial. So for any cynics, you actually have the opportunity to use this for free without any commitment. There's no contracts, et cetera, and you can actually try this out for free. So if you're a cynic, I will tell you, however, though, the people that I've seen that this doesn't work well for is because they haven't had the proper training. They have not had the proper training and they're doing things improperly. And that's why if you actually take and you do purchase or rent a ProStat, a product or equipment, I would encourage you to absolutely do either some training over the phone with Claire, some Skype, FaceTime training, or possibly, I think you're building a training video, is that correct?
We'll have training videos and e-learning material. So before any painter starts to use the ProStat gun, they need to, at the very least, watch the training video.
Yeah,
Because if they don't use it properly, they won't get the benefits from it.
Yeah, and that's what another thing I've found is if they're not trained properly, it ends up sitting in a corner and everybody says it sucks, and the reality is it doesn't suck. It's just that they weren't properly trained on it. So training is critical. And again, if they would like to contact you for more information for a free trial or to get more information about this, do you guys have a website?
We do. The website will be www.pro-statUSA.com.
So that's pro-statusa.com.
Correct.
So this is Mike Anderson from Collision Advice. We have the wonderful, beautiful Claire from England/UK of ProStat, and we just hope that you'll take a chance to check out their website and contact her soon. So again, Mike Anderson of Collision Advice, thanks for joining us today.